Welcome, dear friends. Welcome to today's meeting. So, the topic of today's contemplation and discussion is about beauty. What ideas do you get when you hear the word beauty? Whenever we hear the word beauty or it immediately triggers a very pleasant emotion in the mind. And wherever we see something beautiful around us, we feel happy and positive. And it's not just a beautiful sight, but anything that is pleasing to other senses as well. It all feels attractive. For example, a music that makes us happy, we call it a beautiful melody. Or a food that we love and enjoyed, we call it a beautiful experience. A texture that we feel soft, smooth, etc. It evokes a pleasant feeling, and we say it is a beautiful touch. But beauty is not just limited to scene or aesthetics. Even an idea which evokes a positive emotion in the mind is called as beautiful. Like an idea which is presented in form of a beautiful poetry or a story, we say that to be beautiful. So beauty for the mind is an aesthetic or emotional response to some form of idea, sound, or a shape or form. So, how does the mind decide what is beautiful and what is not? This ability of the mind comes through evolution of mankind. Anything that ensures survival, anything that favors life and maintains the human biology, it is considered beautiful by the mind. And the mind is attracted towards that. And on the contrary, anything that does not favor life or it symbolizes death in any way, it is taken as ugly. And we can find evidences of this everywhere in our behavior, in our everyday decisions, our actions, and our preferences. For example, if the food looks good, it smells good, tastes good, then we are attracted towards it. And if we see rotten, foul smelling, or dirty food, we feel repulsion towards it. And this is the mind's evolutionary built in program, which evokes a sense of disgust of dirty food, so that the action of consuming that food is prevented. It is to avoid sickness or death. And this is an important ability for survival. Similarly, a young, healthy looking body with a good build, it seems beautiful to the mind because such a body symbolizes aliveness. And for the same reason, a frail looking, old, and sick body doesn't seem beautiful. And a healthy young body is also attractive for the opposite gender because it helps to pick up the best mate for a healthy progeny. And the healthy offspring will maintain the survival of the species. Even sounds or textures that are soothing or soft, they are favored by the mind because such touch feels comfortable and safe. It feels less intimidating. The mind prefers them. Just like, for example, the sound of a baby. Although it is meaningless, but it seems cute. Even all baby, all things about the baby, it seems very beautiful because
I lost the audio.
hello, yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes. You said
Yeah. Sorry
the
for
last
the
thing I heard was
glitch.
about a beautiful.
So
The last thing I heard was about a baby, beautiful baby.
yeah. Yes, we'll continue about the baby. So we see that everything about the baby, it seems very beautiful. Like the looks of the baby, the sound of a baby, the touch or the gestures of the baby. And this generates an emotion of affection. And so, because of that, the infant is protected, its survival is ensured. And apart from people, the mind also labels objects or structures or places beautiful or ugly or attractive and repulsive. And we see that any symmetric structure or an organized arrangement looks beautiful to the mind, because the mind does not prefer asymmetry or clutter. And this is because of the evolutionary psychology of the mind. Wherever there is order, the mind likes it. The mind feels pleasure when it can recognize, organize, or predict patterns. And this basically resembles how the mind itself works. The mind is also doing the work of organizing the sensory data all the time. So, why does the mind likes order? Because the symmetry and order, it signal stability and safety for the mind. The mind feels at rest when it sees symmetry and order, and it labels this sensation of rest as beautiful. It is a cognitive ease. And if there is disorganization, the brain has to spend a lot of energy processing all the chaotic and cluttered data. The nervous system is able to conserve the energy better when there is neatness and order. And when there is more energy conserved, that means better survival for the organisms. So, how the mind perceives beauty is, it is not just its survival program, but it is also acquired through conditioning. The mind is conditioned by how the culture or society defines beauty. Like one particular skin tone, shape, or size of facial features, or other body features like hands, feet, etc. They may be considered beautiful in one culture, and the same may not be considered as beautiful in another culture. And there can be innumerable aspects like traditions or various ideas, art, literature, etc., which the conditioned mind will define as beautiful or ugly based on what is agreed upon in that culture or society. And most of our choices of objects are based on that definition of beauty our culture says, like apparel, traditions, etc. And there is another aspect of beauty, that beauty is also perceived symbolically. It is interesting that things may not be beautiful per se, but they may be seen as beautiful. And on the contrary, a beautiful thing may be seen as ugly. The example can be like when we see something, some object, which evokes a personal memory or some meaning, then we consider it as beautiful. For example, a torn book, an ugly looking book or diary, which is related to fond memories of your childhood, it will seem beautiful. And a beautiful object which is associated with a bad memory or some mishap will seem repulsive for the mind. So, why do we want to know all this about beauty? It is because this behavior of the mind, it silently shapes how we make choices, how we treat people, how we take decisions, and define what our values are. How can this influence our action? We have so often experienced that if a person is perceived as beautiful, physically or in personality, then people often trust them more, even without a solid reason. And they get more attention and are offered help easily. And while someone who is ugly, although may have better qualities, but it is seen that people often withdraw attention or avoid interaction, or there are even less opportunities for them. So there is a beauty bias in extending kindness, generosity, and inclusion. And beautiful things or objects often get praise and appreciation, and ugly ones get criticism, neglect, or even ridicule. And this behavior also reinforces social conditioning, because people learn what is valued and conform to those ways even at the cost of their authenticity. And they remain trapped in the illusion of fakeness, inauthenticity. It's a sad life. And beauty also influences how we take decisions. For example, in career or business, people tend to choose partners or employees or products based on aesthetics, even if there is no substance in that. We can see that so often we tend to pick up attractive or beautifully packaged foods, even though they may not be healthy. Also, in relationships, preferences is given to people who look right or whose lifestyle matches a certain image. So many decisions of our life regarding priorities of life, they revolve around what is beautiful or what is not. And we spend a lot of energy, time, and money to surround ourselves with what is beautiful according to cultural standards. All the beauty, luxury, and glamour industry run on this mind based program. So, does beauty affect us in any way? Yes, because when these judgments they run the show of our life, the mind always stays outward focused. The mind is constantly measuring and comparing that this is beautiful, this is not. And such a mind is very restless, and it is a source of great suffering. And we attach one form or attribute and consider that as a source of beauty. And we stay bound to that condition. And this limits our happiness. Like I can feel joy only if things look a certain way. So this will limit my happiness. So with all this, because we say that how subjective the concept of beauty is there any real beauty? Because the definition of beauty is so dynamic in our lives. It changes so much. So the question will arise, is there anything that is really beautiful? Does anything like true beauty exist? And how to know where the real beauty or the true beauty lies? Let us try to contemplate on this. We can experience that this is our direct experience, and we can experience that the beauty is always attached to some form or an idea or some condition. So one thing may seem beautiful or ugly to different people or in different situation. This implies that beauty does not depend on what is observed, but it depends on the mind which is observing it. It is the mind which decides what is beautiful or not, depending on its programming, its conditioning, or personal liking. So, to find what real beauty is, first we have to remove the filter of the mind. We have to go beyond the mind. Now, imagine if you remove the mind. If you transcend the mind, then look at things. Are they beautifully? Now, if you remove the mind, then try to contemplate, will there be a need left to label things as ugly or beautiful? It is because the mind does these categorizations because it is useful for it. But when there is no mind, there is no need to categorize things as ugly or beautiful. So, through this, we can logically say that things per se are neither beautiful nor ugly. They are just as they are. Only the mind sees them as beautiful or ugly for practical purpose. So here we arrive in the realm of non duality, where there is nothing that is really beautiful or really ugly. It is just as it is. It is perfect in the way it is. And we can call this as perfection. This perfection does not have an opposite pair of imperfection. It is absolute perfection. And when we contemplate like this, the mind in some way it settles down. It becomes at ease and it does not need to strain itself continuously to identify, to compare, or to measure if this is beautiful or that is beautiful. And this sense of ease for the mind is pleasure, it is rest, and the mind takes this as beauty. So we can call perfection as beauty or beauty as perfection. And perfection is that beauty which does not have an opposite. So perfection is the real beauty, we can say. It is the highest form of beauty, and it does not need a less beautiful thing to define it. So we have now found where the real beauty is. It lies in perfection. It means that nothing can be any other than this in this moment. It is the way it is, and it is absolutely perfect. There is no overlay, whether something should be like this or should not be like this. Everything is already perfect, and beauty and ugliness do not mean anything. They are both same, they are equal, they are one and the same. So, through our contemplation, we can find that there are layers to how we see beauty. The most basic layer is the biological or the survival related beauty. Through this, to this sense of beauty, we are able to have an intact survival in this world. And on the top of this, the second layer, which is the psychological or the aesthetic perception of beauty. Here, the mind sees beauty in order, symmetry, and pattern. And this is a more evolved perception of beauty, but still, it's not the absolute beauty. A third layer, or the layer above this, is symbolic beauty, which is about finding beauty in relation to memory. Anything which triggers the memory of a positive emotion, it is beautiful. And the fourth layer is the layer of true beauty or the real beauty. And this is the absolute beauty, which is the level of perfection. And in this layer, there is only beauty and nothing else. So, this concept of absolute beauty, does it imply anything in my life? Does it help me in any way? Does this philosophical concept hold any importance? The question may arise, if everything is perfect, then why should I improve? Why should I care about putting effort and developing skills? So here there is confusion about perfection. On one layer is the absolute perfection where everything is perfect as it is because it cannot be anything else at that moment. And this perfection is the truth. And there is another layer of perfection which we can call as a worldly perfection or the functional perfection, which is about meeting some functional standard. And this worldly perfection or functional perfection is about living skillfully in the world. And knowing about the absolute perfection changes the way you operate with functional perfection. So, what happens is you aim for quality and excellence in life, in all your actions, but without the inner anxiety or self judgment. And In doing that, if some mistake happens, it is seen as part of the learning and growth rather than a flaw. The result or the outcome of that work will not define your worth. You will pursue anything with skill and joy and not with fear of imperfection. So, the knowledge of absolute perfection, with that knowledge, you will keep improving yourself without the feeling of not being enough. You will also stop expecting people to change to match your ideals because people are perfect as they are. The flaws in people are also part of the perfection. So, with the idea of absolute perfection, you work with functional perfection. You give your best in a skillful manner, mindfully, and lovingly. And whatever is the outcome, including imperfection, is also perfect. There will be nothing which is missing. For example, you try to cook a dish very meticulously and now you feel tense how it comes out. But when you are in the truth that everything is perfect, then you give full attention to cooking with the best efforts, but still accept it happily if it does not turn out to be good. You see that it was a perfect outcome for learning and refinement of your cooking. So we can experiment about this. Anytime you catch yourself, you watch yourself that you are instantly liking something or disliking something based on how the thing looks or feels, then just be aware of it and observe how the mind is defining beauty. Notice how the definition can change. When the mind signals that something is imperfect or ugly, ask if this imperfection that I'm seeing is in that thing or the imperfection is in my expectation, and stay in that awareness which is beyond the mind, in that awareness that sees beauty and ugliness without any preference, and let this awareness be on all the time. And you will notice that the distinction of beautiful or not beautiful, it gradually fades away. When you stop measuring it, you will realize that beauty was never in the arrangement, but in perceiving. And when you rest in the awareness of absolute beauty and perfection of everything, then whatever effort is done, it becomes play and not pressure. And improvement becomes self expression and not a compulsion. So, friends, what thoughts do you have about this topic of beauty and ugliness and perfection? Or do you have any comments or questions? You can write them or you can speak.
Hey, Neelam. Um, Thanks so much. I think that was a great analysis, and it's kind of, Guruji has like taught us well how to contemplate, because in the first part of your talk, I was kept being like, well, why isn't she talking about the layers? So, but then you started talking about layers. So one thing that I wanted to, you obviously understood it and contemplated it and talked about it, but I wanted to say explicitly is it, as you talked, it was very interesting to me how some of the things you mentioned would be beautiful for a lower layer that was interested in survival. I mean, you said this, but I think that's really interesting. Like a beautiful piece of food would be very interesting at the animal level, but at like the higher levels, at the spiritual level, it wouldn't be so interesting. And it actually something that might be against survival, um, like uh, let's say seeing a rivalry, so, someone you felt like as a rival, someone you didn't like, feeling that in a meditation dissolve, like your competitiveness with that person dissolve. That's to me, on a spiritual level, one of the most beautiful things I can see. The transformation. I think the transformation of an enemy into a friend through, meditation, through seeing my nature as one with them, understanding that, like, that's a very beautiful thing. But I would argue that a lot of times it's probably not best for my survival. So I think it's interesting how the layers that Gurji outlined can kind of show how beauty changes depending on what layer is dominant. That's one of my comments.
Yeah, Graham. That's great, which you shared that the competitiveness dissolves. And I think that's a great piece for the mind when you no longer feel competitive. That's really amazing. And even complaining about people, it dissolves the flaws which we see. This person is not up to my expectations and all. When you see perfection, when you gradually become aware of the perfection of their imperfection, then I think life becomes quite peaceful. The acceptance comes. Yeah.
Definitely. You also reminded me of like a Buddhist saying, saying from like a Zen master that sounds like exactly like what you were saying, and I forget. I'm bad with exact names. Begins with an H, but anyway, the what he says is if you want to see reality before you, undisguised. If you want reality to manifest before you, undisguised, uh, just have no preference for or against what you see, um, and yeah, and reality will manifest if we eliminate our preference for this or that, and so see everything as perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. That was perfect. And as we discussed, in the layers of beauty, the first is the survival, then above that is the layer of the mind, like a bit higher layer in which the mind sees beauty in forms and patterns. And regarding that, there is an experience of where I could recognize how the mind likes patterns and symmetry, and it feels pleasure to see order. And I I recognize this behavior of the mind. Like, I used to be obsessed with too much of organizing things at home, like everything in order, very neat, spick and span. And when I saw things cluttered and all, like, I my mind was irritated and angry if I couldn't keep things in order well. And even I pushed everyone in the family to be organized as I was. And this was getting me stressed up a lot. And that was long back. At that time, my kids were also young and I was burdened with a lot of work. Then I thought that I have to somehow give up this obsession because it was becoming stressful for everyone. And at that time, I did not have this spiritual knowledge of beauty or anything like that. But still, I decided that if I had to be peaceful, then I have to accept the clutter also. And it is now that I realize how the mind is attached to the beauty of form. and order, and how it becomes restless when it sees clutter. And I can relate it that as soon as I accepted that, okay, everything is fine, the clutter is also fine, when I have time, I'll do it, I'll organize it. But if I cannot, I'll not stress up myself, I'll just accept as it is, let it lie there without that. And so the stress became less. So I could relate with this very well. Now I can now I can understand what was, how the mind was perceiving, how the mind was getting irritated because of that clutter, because it was attached to how things should be in that way. And when I gave up that, I was peaceful. Yeah, this is so common, I think so many people will relate to this. Yeah, Shivam is saying yes. When we try to contemplate so many of our choices and decisions and all, they are based on this preference only, that the mind wants this, the mind doesn't want this. And then when you contemplate deeper and deeper, one thought after the other, you will be led to how the thing which we are attached, it is always changing. So whatever we contemplate, it always, we come back to that pathway of finding the truth, the absolute truth, in which the definition is anything that changes is true, and anything that doesn't change is true. So wherever you try to contemplate, you will come to that pathway. And this revelation was so amazing for me, that when I contemplated about beauty, it led me to this path. It led me that non duality is the absolute perfection, it is the absolute beauty.
Hi, Neelam.
Hi.
Uh, I wanted to know about when you told uh, self-expression, self-improvement becomes the very expression of you. So this is what I am, I think,
Yes.
something struggling with.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's your, can you put more light on it?
See, when you say self expression or self improvement, you meant?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, self improvement, yes, it is a surely a positive thing, which one always, when the mind always has a pleasure in improvement. So, this is a fact, this is the quality of the mind. But when you do self improvement with the background thought that I am not enough, so I have to do self improvement, then it becomes a compulsion, then it becomes a stress. But when you begin self improvement from the position that I am perfect, whatever I am, in my own way, my whatever are my flaws, I accept it and it is perfect. And when you begin from that, okay, so maybe I try to improve this flaw, maybe I try to go one notch higher, let me see, let me put all my effort. But then I don't be sad, unhappy, or unsatisfied with what I am now. I don't complain that I am bad, I am not enough. So when you begin with that feeling, then you can, the self improvement, there'll be no upper limit with self improvement. Improve. You can improve to any limit which you wish. But basically, it should always begin with that everything is perfect right now. If I'm like this, then it is perfect for me to be like this, and to learn more also is perfect. I could express that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shivam. Graham writes the quote that brought to mind a core Zen teaching from the Sin Ming, Faith in Mind, by the third Chinese Zen patriarch, Shen. It says the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make